Okay, so you were telling me about your typical.
I finally remember the name of the nightclub. I'm glad you asked about a typical date in the 40s because it was so different from today. As I say, if you were lucky you had a date. If you were a boy, you were lucky if you had a little bit of money and could get access to a car. And the ideal date was to get all dressed up, never mind about supper, I don't know what happened there. But you would go out to this nightclub on the north side of town. I finally remember the name of it was Avalon. Avalon. Now there was a famous nightclub in Los Angeles named Avalon. And there was then one here in Austin named Avalon. That was the ideal place to go. I imagined that this was a restaurant where you could have dinner. However, we university students didn't know too much about that because nobody could afford dinner at a restaurant anyway. What you did was you went out there with your date, and maybe you had 2 or 3 other couples that you were double dating with or triple dating with, and everybody sat around this table, boys and girls from the university, and you smoked cigarettes and you drank. And so what did you drink? You ordered, let's see, you ordered 7-Up and ice and lemon, or Coke and ice and lemon, or Dr. Pepper and ice and lemon. And then the boys brought out liquor that they had bought at a liquor store, and they had brought in a brown paper sack to the nightclub. This is what everybody did, because you could buy liquor at some places in Texas, but you couldn't buy a mixed drink. They didn't. That was against the law. So if you wanted to have liquor, the guy bought liquor at a liquor store and brought it in a brown paper sack and set those brown paper sacks on the table. And here were all these brown paper sacks and the Cokes and the 7-Ups and the lemons and the ice, and everybody mixed their drinks and had their drinks. Of course, a lot of people didn't want to drink alcohol, but that's what they had to do if they wanted to drink alcohol. Otherwise, they just drank, Cokes and Dr. Peppers and so forth. And everybody smoked. Everybody smoked. At that time, cigarettes cost 20 cents a pack. So one cigarette cost you 1 penny. And this is what you did hour after hour. You also danced. There was music. I'm not clear whether it was recorded or whether there was a live music group. I don't really remember, but there was music. I'm tempted to say it was jukebox. I'm pretty sure it was jukebox. So you sat around the table and you drank drinks and smoked cigarettes and laughed and talked and gossiped, and then you also got up and danced with your date or with somebody else's date. And this was a typical Saturday night date at UT.
And you did this pretty much every weekend?
Well, sometimes you didn't have a date.
Now you described this as, all of the guys would get together and the girls would get together and kind of pool their liquor and their drinks. So were you going out on group dates, or was this one-on-one dates?
Most of the time, I was just a one-on-one. But sometimes you would meet up with somebody at the nightclub, or you would run into them, or you would all gather around the same table. Somehow I'm thinking of one-on-one dates, but at the same time, you'd be at a table with 5 or 6 or 7 other people.
Did you usually have a date?
Not always, but frequently. If I did not have a date on Saturday night, and that did happen, I like to go to a place called the Chuck Wagon, which was the official eating place in the Union Building. You went up the steps on the left. The building is still there. I'm not sure what they have, but it was a kind of like Denny's, only different. It's a place to eat at the university.
Mm-hmm.
In the Union Building. On Saturday night, their menu was some real nice baked beans and applesauce and something called brown bread, which I don't know if you're familiar with, but brown bread was a kind of a sweet type of bread baked in a round tin. It had raisins in it and lots of sugar, and it was really good with beans. And so if I didn't have a date on Saturday night, I'd go up there, and that's what I would have for supper.
So did you do a lot of, I mean, was it sort of the expected thing that this was what you were supposed to want to do on the weekend, is to have a date? Was that the culture?
Yes, ideally, you always would like to have a date on Saturday night if it was handy. It didn't always work out, and of course a lot of people were pinned, as they called it. If their boyfriend was already gone off to service or something, that they didn't date at all. A lot of people consider themselves pinned. They already had a pin. They were engaged to somebody, but no, I was never pinned at the university and didn't want to be. Then you also had a date sometimes on Sunday to go to church, or Sunday afternoon to go somewhere to do something. There was another nightclub on the south side of downtown called the Tower, and they had a little imitation tower up on top. It was kind of an imitation of the tower at the university, and for some reason I'm thinking of late Sunday afternoon, what was called tea dancing, like this at 5 or 6 o'clock, and you got kind of dressed up, and you went to the tower, and